Yeah,
right?
it drop back.
Terrible. The offensive line was atrocious, no doubt. But he was, as soon as he started getting happy feet in the second quarter, it was over.
It looked like he looked in the 2018 season with the Jets. I see ghosts everywhere. I don't know where he was looking. No. Some of those balls were very questionable. They've been on pace with Addison and with Jefferson all season long. Then all of a sudden, here comes a very important game, and he does a freeze frame. I don't know where the check down is. There's no fluidity.
As soon as he got that third sack, he was wide-eyed the whole time. It was over. They would have been better off to throw Daniel Jones in there after half.
Wow.
Well, Daniel Jones could not have played. He was the emergency third quarterback. Nick Mullins was eligible to play, and I would have put Mullins in a heartbeat. He may not be good, but he's a gunslinger, and that's what they needed at that point. He will stare down pressure, and he will get the ball out. They had a chance to come back if he was in the game, but like I said, unfortunately, Daniel Jones is a number 3. Both of them had to be injured for him to get in.
I thought he was elevated for that game.
No. I checked it because I tweeted out immediately about the ghosts and that we need Mullins. And then somebody said Daniel Jones. And I went to the RotoWire page to check it. And he was inactive emergency third quarterback.
That's interesting because they were giving him first team reps during practice. So that's an odd stance for a guy you're going to have as their third string guy. I don't know why you would do that. So interesting. I wonder if that was like a late shift where they were like, you know what, we're going to have you R2, and then decided they've seen tape on him before and like, you know what, you're actually better as the 3.
Yeah, here it is. Coach's decision, inactive for Monday night's wild card game, but will serve as the Vikings emergency third quarterback. That was broken before the game by Ben Gosling of the Minneapolis Star Tribune. So
so that was just a late decision then.
Yeah.
If they had actually looked at Daniel Jones's film before actually ever acquiring him, maybe they probably shouldn't have acquired him when he was available. But one thing these quarterbacks all have in common is they're all gunslingers. Every single one of them, 1, 2, and 3. And I believe in the situation with Sam, it was really kind of, I don't know. All the hype was with Minnesota. I was on the Minnesota bandwagon for a minute, only because he's my guy. He's from Southern California with all the fires and everything down here going on. I thought maybe he'd have a spark of his own, but unfortunately he's seen ghosts and that was it.
See, the bigger picture of all this is, and it got by me a little bit. In the NFL playoffs with game planning, teams that are well coached will take away the thing that is your biggest weakness. If they know they can cripple you with something, they will. And after seeing that week 18 film of what Detroit did to Darnold, it was a little different, but it was pretty similar how they attacked. And they said, if you can't deal with this, we are sending as many people as possible. And the Rams are a zone team. They played man because they got hands on receiver for a second and a half because knowing the pressure was coming, Darnold was going to have to make a second reaction play. Good night. It's over.
Yeah, he was under pressure and duress all night long. I mean, it wasn't even close. He took some hits as he was releasing the ball, and I seen one of those. I was just kind of shook my head saying, oh, my gosh, is he going to get up from that? But he did, and he's a real tough guy, but they just didn't have it together. I mean, you look at what happened, Steelers and Ravens, right? Ravens ran through them like a hot knife through butter. I mean, and 70 missed tackles in a game, that's astronomically high, and then that leads to 300 yards of offense. What? I mean, something's got to change in Pittsburgh, and I mean drastically. And people were calling for Mike Tomlin's head, as they always do every single year. But you know what? To be completely fair, I'm kind of tired of Mike Tomlin myself, to be honest with you, because year after year, it's 500 football.
That's right. I hate making on the playoffs. It's the worst.
There are no playoff appearances other than wild card, right?
Rudy, does he have the personnel to get to the Super Bowl? Like, he's had teams like last year's edition was horrid, and he managed to get a winning record out of a horrible team.
The only reason why he won Super Bowl 43.
Eli showed you all you had to do was get in the dance, right?
That's it.
That's it.
It's a whole different animal.
The most average dude ever. which is Eli. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame because he played a long time and got 2 rings.
Well, he won't get ahead of his
career.
brother.
He was never going to be a Hall of Fame guy. He was never lauded as the best at his position any year he ever played. Right.
Well, then I guess Victor Cruz ought to be in the Hall of Fame too, because he caught the ball in his helmet that allowed Eli.
Oh, David Tyree. David Tyree.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Yep.
Tyree. Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what, the Tomlin talk, I do want to give credit to the Ravens. They played first early in the season, and they were running under center. And then they got film on the Steelers, and they realized, oh, wait, they can't stop shotgun run. And actually, Baltimore featured it more anyway later in the season. But in that game, they came out shotgun run, and then at 162 yards in week 16. Then the playoff game, Pittsburgh had a wrinkle, and I wondered what the wrinkle was going to be. And immediately, they were going to send everybody at Henry. And remember those 5 straight plays in the first drive? Lamar just pulls the ball and runs. Basically, like, oh, we knew you were going to go after Henry. We're going to make you pay. It was a masterclass in you're screwed. You have no answers for us.
There was no correction in the second half either. After the first half dominance by Baltimore, that's why they won so handily against Pittsburgh. But there's got to be some changes. Wilson's gone, as far as I'm concerned. Fields could be competing for a starter spot. Steelers don't really have any draft capital to go after a guy in lower hanging fruit in the first, second, or even third round. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in free agency. And if there's anybody worth a hoot that's going to allow this team to go beyond the .500 expectations that Mike Tomlin seems to hold so near and dear. They were outcoached. They were outplayed in every single facet of this game. It was absolutely disgusting. I can't believe I watched the whole thing.
The thing there was they started they started getting into what Wilson doesn't do well, right?
Yep.
Like when you look at the game, they started to slide, right? Last 4 games of the season. Before that, they were relying on that defense, the running game, asking Wilson to do a couple of things a game. Then they started getting into that, oh, we're going to let Russ cook. And he's just not good at that, right? Like top ramen is his best meal. And so, which is fine if you have other things. But noodles,
you know how to make a spread out of it, yeah.
Like if you got chicken and stuff, you can dress that up. But if it's just him trying to cook noodles, man, you're going to be disappointed. And unfortunately for them, that's all they had. Like they got away from the run game, which he needs. And
so
I don't know why.
So are you saying he's Chef from South Park?
No, he's Chef Boyardee. Is what
worse. It's even worse.
I thought you were giving him credit there, but no, honestly, you know what? Field has a better record as a starter than Wilson, but yet you don't take that into consideration. I was all over this Mike Tomlin.
I fully disagree with that. Hold on. 3 of his 4 wins came because of defensive either pick sixes or scoop and scores.
Right, but the fact that when he got them in position in the red zone, that Russell Wilson only did not even a handful of times while he was under center. Again, relied on the defense.
Yeah.
Front office relied on the defense. Coaching staff relied on the defense. There was too much. There was way too much. You went outside of the scope of normalcy as you know what it's been working with Justin Fields, getting us in position. Could that have worked against Baltimore? No, probably not. But at least you would have been able to put more points on the board. At least
you're both right.
Get into the red zone.
Yep.
Get something right versus getting it all wrong, which were
you both were right. Because
I would have liked to see a 2 quarterback set there. Use Fields as a Taysom Hill kind of guy.
Yes. Well, they did. Remember in that one play, and then they took him out at the last minute, stuck Wilson in, and then Wilson's like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do this. Look, Wilson is gone. He's not the guy he used to be. He's a shell of who he was. And for all intents and purposes, I'm tired of the Tomlin euphemisms. Or the Tomlinism.
Not really, though. That's exactly who Wilson is. So when they were using the running game, relying on the defense, asking him to be special 3 to 4 times a game, that's exactly who he is. That's how he won a Super Bowl in Seattle.
Right.
You throw the rock around, that defense carried that team. I mean, when you watched the Super Bowl against the Broncos, that was all defense. Right?
Oh, yeah.
The offense did a couple of things, but mostly the defense dominated that game. You know, you go to the next year, even against the Patriots in that loss, until all the defensive players started getting hurt and leaving that game, that game wasn't being dominated by Wilson.
No.
He was there. He made
one of my favorite ones, though.
Right?
Where they forgot about Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my favorite Super Bowl play in history. That tells you who I kind of like.
yeah,
And by
I
the
mean,
way, I hope the rumors are not true that the greatest coach that we know of, Bill Belichick, is going to Dallas. I think I'd have to throw up about 20 times and then reconsider. I don't know what I would do. It just seems so, it's like the odd couple.
That's
Jerry
not
Jones with Bill Belichick. I mean, there'd be fist fights in every boardroom.
well, for shows like this, it'd be fantastic. But in real life, I don't think it works out.
No.
But imagine this. Imagine the fun Belichick would have with his new Lawrence Taylor and Micah Parsons. That would be fun. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want him there, but that would be fun.
He's not signed, though.
They'll figure, Jerry, come on. Jerry does whatever he has to do. He'll pay him.
You know what?
They're still over the cap. Even with losing all their players, they still have no cap space. That's going to be a tough signing.
That'll be huge. I'd rather. So then I guess the better question is between head coaches, who's better, Mike McCarthy or Mike Tomlin?
I can see Tomlin going there if the Steelers let him go.
Tomlin.
I do as well.
I would take Tomlin in a heartbeat.
He's still in the middle of a contract, so they would have to upload and do something with his contract. But at the end of the day, I think that Deion Sanders still not the best bet as a head coach for the Dallas Cowboys. It's just too soon for him. And I say that because we hear about Gerard Mayo in New England when, untenable was the actual verbiage that was used by Robert Kraft as Gerard Mayo was not ready for that position. And you could tell, I could tell looking at him on the sidelines, almost like lost, like, what the hell am I doing here? What's really going on? Am I going to stay around another year? And unfortunately, they got their man in Mike Vrabel, who's been there, done that as one of their elite players defensively. So is that a good fit?
I don't know, but that statement by Kraft made me think a long time ago when a girl broke up with you. She would say, "Oh, you're the greatest guy. I'm really sorry. But there's nothing wrong with you. You're just not ready for this, or I'm not ready for this." And isn't it true though?
It's not you, it's me.
It's not that you're ugly. It's just
Every time. I do want to touch on Jay's comments here. So ramen and veggies can turn out okay. The problem is they just started leaning on the ramen and took the veggies and meat away. So that's where that comparison came in. And then you putting his stats up there, his stats are always fine. I mean, they were actually decent looking if you were just looking at the page in Denver. The problem is where he falls short is sustained drives. Most of his stuff is when a defense gets a turnover, you're in positive territory, he capitalizes on those situations. When it's long field, that's where he starts to fall short. Not every time, obviously, he can drive the field sometimes, but that is where it falls apart. And that's where the stats hide where his shortcomings are. What's up, Alex?
Good morning, Alex.
When we start taking a look at some of the analytics that aren't debatable, really. They are what they are. But the first one here, let's start with this. These are for the divisional round only. And some of them are pretty interesting to say the least. As you can see on the chart here, home teams flat out 42 and 48 against the spread, 47%. But I like pivot points. You guys know that 28 points in college football is a massive pivot point. If you like a team that, like Oklahoma, for example, back in their scoring days, that scored 28 points sometimes in the first quarter, they did very, very well against the spread if they scored 28 or more points. The same thing applies to the NFL, especially in this round. So the magic number is 24. If your favorite team, you think they're going to score 24 or more, you're in good shape. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And you're even in better shape if you're playing at home. So as you see, 24 more points, 64 and 22 straight up, 67% against the spread, and 78% to the over. So we had a divisional round, wild card round, where we're hitting about 65% since 2015, blindly betting the under on every single game. And I think there was only one under result this year in the wild card round, if my memory's correct. I know the under won a lot more than the over. So now it kind of reverses. The market gets ahead of itself. Everything's going to play, under the total. We have that Kansas City Chiefs Texans line, and everybody's talking about defense, and we'll get to that game in a second. The market has a tendency to overreact. So drilling further, road teams that score 24 or fewer points are only 10 and 47 straight up, but 24 and 32 against the spread. So that's not really that good. 38 and 19 under for 67% when they score less than 24. Home teams less than 24. Happens not nearly as often as evidenced by the road team record. So 16 and 21, 7 and 29 against the spread for 19%, 31 and 7 under. My one question when we get to the game, guys, is can the Chiefs score 24 points against that defense? And if they don't, are they in trouble? Let's go to the next one here. Home teams that average more rushing yards per game. All right, that's not bad. That would, apply to the Eagles and a couple other teams here. Teams that average rushing yards per game is greater than 150 versus a foe who does not gain 125 or more. So there's 125 or fewer versus a team that's 150 or more. This is the Eagles. Small sample size, but not bad. 5 and 2 straight up. I'll take that. Road dogs, average passing yards higher than the average passing yards of the host. Not so good, but against the spread, the Rams, they're the team that's playing the Eagles. So I have two conflicting angles, and it's going to be up to you guys to help me figure out, are the Eagles going to blow them out, or are the Rams going to just trade South Philly havoc? Favorites of 6 or more points and average passing yards greater than the opponents. Pretty good. 19 and 17 for 53%. But again, look at the over, 23 and 13. Like I said, the theme in the divisional round is points and point and point. Straight up in the divisional round, the straight up winner. So here's something pretty neat. If you feel that any of these teams are going to be the winner, bar none, just know that in the divisional round, if you predict the winner, whether it's a dog or a favorite, 78% of the time you're right against the spread too. Road dogs of less than 5.5 points, pretty darn good. 17 and 12, 59%, and even over under. And the last slide here is getting drilling a little bit further. You might want to know that of the past 25 seasons, home teams have gone 63 and 27. I don't know why I have that 2 in there. There are no ties. 42 and 48 for 47%. And of these seasons, 15 seasons that the home teams went 3-1 or better. Okay, so it is very rare when a team, when the divisional round sees more of the road teams win than the home teams. I think I said that right. On Saturdays, you would think that the day doesn't matter. And statistically, I'll tell you right now, it doesn't matter. There's not really a strong correlation here with the day of the week. However, home teams on Saturdays since 2015, 15 and 3, 12 and 6, 11 and 6 under, contrary indicator to my over theme. On Sundays, home teams not as good, 7 and 10 against the spread. Now we have new playoff teams. This is the last one. New playoff teams are, kind of good because why? They're overvalued by the public. A team like Washington is going to get no respect. And obviously they're not because they're 9.5-point underdogs playing Detroit. So in this situation, those teams go 28 and 19 against the spread when facing a team that was in the playoffs the previous year. That puts you on Washington in this particular round. If that team is priced between a 2.5 and 9.5-point dog, which Washington is, 18 and 10 against the spread for 64%, but the under again, 18 and 9-1 under. So if that is the case, who in the world is going to stop Detroit on that Washington defense? Granted, they're pretty good, but there's a lot of questions here in this round. And after this weekend, obviously, we're going to be down to the Final Four. And when we get to the end of the show, maybe we can do our Final Four and see if we have any agreement or consensus. But I sense there's going to be some upsets. So let's get to the first one here. And we may go in reverse order here, actually. But let's talk about this game. Because this is the one that I initially thought, the Chiefs are going to get their act offensively. They're going to just kick butt. Andy Reid's an offensive genius. He'll be able to, as Jim said, take out the biggest asset of the Houston Texans and then minimize it so that they can win. just like Bill Belichick did every single game he ever game planned for. And I'm sure there's others. Those are the only two that come to mind. But anyway, in this betting system, this supports the Texans. And I actually think they're a live dog. I'll say it right now, even before we get to the show best bets. This could easily be my best bet of the week. This system is 36-17 against the spread, 68%. The games played in the postseason, the spread is between 5.5, 14 points. The spread percentage of bets is less than 50%. So we have a dog that's being cast to the sidewalk. And in this case, only 38% of the bets being placed are on the Texans. The total is fewer than 50 points. If the total is between 40 and 49.5, these teams have gone 31-12 against the spread for 72% winning bets in the NFL playoffs, any round in it, including the Super Bowl since 2004. So I think you can see why I'm on the Texans. Let's start with Rudy Reyes here and see if he agrees with me or if he thinks I'm just completely lost my mind.
Well, the only way that this game could even be close, and there's reasons why the Chiefs will cover, and there's a reason why, well, the Texans will cover this. Look, the Chiefs played at home in December. Chiefs won that game 27-19, but the weather was around 30 degrees at kickoff with a wind chill of 25 degrees. Gosh, that's cold. I think there's a reason why this Saturday is kind of a clincher for Kansas City as they find a way to go for the three-peat, which hasn't been done in NFL history. Now, with that, the way that I see this game basically pivoting out is if for some reason the Houston Texans do one of two things. They can either contain Mahomes and apply, some very, cross-eyed pressure on Mahomes to force him in the pocket, because we know that his scrambling skills are absolutely phenomenal, and he'll make you pay. If you blink, he's gone. He averaged 5 rushing attempts at over almost 30 yards per game, which is absolutely absurd. And then the last 2 Super Bowl wins, he's run for 44 yards. So you have to contain him. And I think when you look at this game, I think to myself, man, am I going to be on the money line here, or am I going to rely on someone else? Right now, on the money line, it looks pretty good. But it's only 8.5 under. If you're a Chiefs fan, or if you're going for the Texans, you're over 8.5. But I think weather will play a huge factor in this game. I just don't see the ball being kicked very high because of the amount of pressure atmospherically that will drop that ball down faster into the would-be receiver's hands, the punt returner's hands. So this is closer than it actually looks. But unfortunately for the the Texan fans, and funny little note that the Kansas City Chiefs were formerly known as the Texans, which is kind of ironic to say the least, which is quite interesting. But I hate to say this. This is my twin brother's team. Yes, I'm a twin. Don't even ask me how that came to happen, because I don't know. But I've got to take the Chiefs in this matchup, despite how good the Texans are with their 1-2 punch on the defense. I just think they have tons of play offensively. And sadly enough, this isn't the first time that they beat the Texans, and it's not going to be the last.
Yeah, the last time was pretty ugly in the playoffs, wasn't it? It was 24-0 Texans, and if I remember right, it was a 51-7 run. even the Sixers aren't that bad. So,
even though they lost last night.
Do you think the Chiefs are going to get it done here, or are we going to have the upset of the last 20 years?
No, I think KC gets it done. It's going to be similar to the Rams, where they come in and they beat you with experience, right? They've been there before. They're calm, collected. The moment's not going to be too big. Not to say that we didn't see good things out of Daniels being calm and collected and poised in the pocket. But, this is a team that's won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls and have won an insane amount of regular season and postseason games. This is their second postseason game. I know Dan Quinn's been in the moment, but those players haven't been. And I think this is one where KC, maybe they're not as good as they once were, but they can see the prize at the end at this point.
Yeah, I know it's a reach, but I think if I do the Texans little pizza money line with another dog, a little 2-team parlay might be fun. We'll have to wait and see. But Jim, tell us who some of the key players are that could help the Texans, or actually maybe Mahomes, since he's had underperformed season. Maybe his totals over passing yards might be good, but I have no idea.
This is a Steve Spagnuolo special. These teams played in Week 16. The big factor in the game was Tank Dell. He tore up his knee 4 minutes into the second half on that touchdown, which was the 16th point that Houston had scored. They scored 3 the rest of the way. But in that particular game, Nico Collins got catches. He got nothing after the catch. Kansas City made it a point of saying, we are getting him corralled. As soon as he catches it, he is going down, and he did. And if you take away Nico Collins after the catch, that's a massive problem. And now there's no Tank Dell to worry about. John Mechie ain't hurting you. Robert Woods isn't hurting you. Who cares about Dalton Schultz? Xavier Hutchinson's a non-factor. So they could put even more attention on Nico Collins. I love him under the 80 yards in this game. And then they got one other player to worry about, Joe Mixon. But Kansas City probably learned from the film and from that game. Mixon only can do well running to the left. If he runs up the middle and to the right, offensive line is a train wreck and the right side. And he gets no yardage there. When he goes to the left, he does well. Kansas City will have a plan for him running left in this game. I can't see Spagnuolo overlooking that detail. If they literally slow down Mixon, slow down Collins, what are they going to do? They have nobody else. Nothing. And it's going to be 11-degree wind chill. Rudy talked about 25 last time. It's going to be 11 feel out there. That's not good for Houston. And on the Kansas City side of the ball, look, they have integrated Hollywood Brown in. Now their vision is there. This is the preseason vision. And the vision was you use the speed of Worthy and Brown to open up stuff underneath, because defense have to respect the speed. Kelsey is facing a third string free safety in this game. In the last game was Jimmy Ward, who was very good. They're down to a third stringer, and they can't focus on Kelsey because of the speed of Brown and Worthy. Kansas City's in good shape here.
I mean, you can't even they don't even have the decoy of Deontay Johnson because they just let him go ahead of this game. So you can't even use his speed to offset something. I mean, the Texans are in a rough spot.
They are in a rough spot.
That little algorithm, huh?
Yeah, but think about this. Schultz himself had a touchdown and caught 5 passes for 45 yards. So, look,
uncovered on the touchdown. They left. Right. They forgot.
Yeah, exactly. So will that correction be made? Spagnuolo's done this many times before. It's not going to be the last time you're going to see any type of switch, perhaps defensively. I'm with you, Jim. I just don't. I don't see Houston's ability to discombobulate this Chiefs secondary. There's just no way. And then you have to worry about Mahomes, as I stated earlier. Keep him in the pocket, keep him neutralized. If you don't, he's going to run all over you. And he's done it many times to many different teams. And I don't think the Houston Texans get away from that at all. I think he's going to run all over them as well.
And one quick important point, which I forgot to mention, Jalen Watson, who is with McDuffie, the best corner on that team, he's been out since week 7. He was practicing in week 18, full practice this week. If he is back, they're even that much more lethal because they really took a hit in that secondary. When he was out after McDuffie, the other corners were not good and teams picked on him through the air. With Watson and McDuffie, it's a completely different secondary.
Plus, I mean, Mahomes is overcoming a high ankle sprain. And what's he do with a high ankle sprain? Wins football games.
That's the best analytic yet of this game.
Yeah, really.
Anyway, let's move to this other one on Sunday. The Rams are going into the city of brotherly love, which may have actually snowed during this game from the forecast I've seen. It won't be heavy snow, but, everybody talks about a warm weather team going into a cold weather team. I think more importantly in this one, it's not the temperature. It's the fact that the players are going to be in a very hostile environment. We always talk about it. This is a very passionate Philly fan base, and they can smell blood in the water right now, and a trip to the Super Bowl and a win. I mean, it's winner or nothing for the Philadelphia Eagle fans. But I thought it was interesting. My model had this as a 4.5-point favorite for the Eagles. It opened at 6, went to 6.5, now back down to 6. So the market's kind of telling me the Eagles. However, this betting system supports the Rams. Again, a very contrarian situation. And if, $10, $20 bet using the whatever 2 money line dogs you like. This may be the year to try it in the divisional round. Like we said, there's very few years that the home teams don't go 3-1. There's a home team that we're going to talk about next. It's a dog, amazingly enough, and actually a dog whose weather is usually an asset. And in this case, it's not, but more on that later. This system has gone 61% since 2019. It includes the regular season and the postseason rounds. Bet on a team that won and covered their previous game by double digits. In that win, they had twice as many penalty yards as their opponent. This has come up several times on the show this year, and it's done very, very well, going 5-1 against the spread when it's appeared on the show. And by the way, guys, we're 67% against the spread for the whole year. I don't think there's a show out there that can say they hit 65%, but if there is, I'd like to know, because then we could, invite those guests on too for next year. But it's been a sensational year for us. We've been lucky a couple of times, but we've been smart. Now in this situation, if the opponent has a 50% or better win percentage, these teams improve to 32-15 for 68% winning bets. This is on the Rams. So is the 6 points looking pretty good to you, Rudy?
I don't know about that. I think that when you look at this game, because of what the Rams didn't have to face, which was, fires in Matthew Stafford's home and being threatened, and, JJ Redick's house for the Lakers head coach there, his home also destroyed. There's a lot to play for, and you've seen it on display against the Minnesota Vikings. There's no question about it. I mean, the fact alone that you're traveling to a very hostile. When I say hostile, I don't mean like they're going to hold you up with guns, entering the vet. It's going to be kind of close, right? Because the Rams have won 6 of their last 7 games and only a meaningless loss to the Seahawks in the regular season finale. But this game right here is really going to put them on the edge because it's tough to win. The Eagles are 8-1 at home this season, and they're trying to reach the NFC Championship game. Now, by contrast, the Rams themselves threw for 243 yards. Matthew Stafford also sacked 5 times by 4 different Eagles players. So it's unlikely that trend is going to not continue. Jalen Hurts has a perfect 3-0 record at the vet, at least during the playoffs, and averaging almost 136 in passing yards and 37 rushing yards, along with a couple tush pushes here and there. But the Rams have a lot to play for, and they showed it against Minnesota. More fouls for Minnesota being Minnesota. There was just a lot to like about who this Rams team is now versus what they look like in the earlier part of this year, where they just didn't look like they could get it together with injuries, with miscues offensively. Drops were a massive problem for them, but they have found a way to really, rise to the occasion. This isn't Matthew Stafford's first rodeo, maybe his second, but not his first, because he's been there, done that, already won a Super Bowl that I had the pleasure of actually being at Media Day for that. And of course, I was on the bandwagon for the other team to win, but it is what it is. I think the Rams cover here at 6.5. I do like it at 6 though. It's a little dicey, but I think the Eagles, being the underdog, take the 6. But either way, I think both teams cover. To be honest with you, I don't know about keeping my hands in my pocket on this game, only because this is going to be this is one of the biggest games, and if you want to win max amount of money, you're going to want your hands out of your pocket and make sure you have rabbit ears and put it all on the table between these two teams. So when it's all said and done,
one thing before we get to Jim is the thing I like with this Eagles team is that they have the worst scoring offense in the first quarter. So you guys know how I love to do the live betting, like I used to trade on Wall Street. I really would love to see the Rams get out to a 7 or 10-0 lead, and then I would be absolutely all over the Eagles to come back and get the win.
Well,
I do think that this team's going to be closer than people think.
They did that against Minnesota. they scored the 10 first points in the first quarter against Minnesota, who's been on fire offensively up until that game. Just saying.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park for the Eagles, but if there was going to be a blowout, obviously I think it's going to be the Eagles. And by the way, 22 of the last 25 Super Bowls has had a 1 or a 2 seed in it. There's only one Super Bowl during that span that didn't have a 1 or 2 seed in it. So keeping that in the back of your mind for upset potential, this one is there, but I don't know. The Eagles are playing pretty good, and Saquon Barkley, I'm sure Jim will have something to talk about there. And also, I think personally, A.J. Brown could have a monster game based on his matchup. Let's see what Jim has to say about that.
John, I'm very worried about A.J. Brown's knee. I think there's something seriously wrong with it. And not seriously, but like where he's like season ending. But I think that he is in a real bad way. He missed the practice last week. He missed the practice this week. He had 3 targets and 1 catch last week. I think he's going to be a decoy. I think you're right. If he's healthy, he could easily go off. He had 109 yards in the first meeting against these teams, and they had no answer for him. Fortunately, they do have Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. But here's the big story. Saquon Barkley only rushed for 266 yards against them last time. 2 70-yard touchdown runs. He also chipped in 40 yards for the year. So he had over 300 scrimmage yards. And obviously he won't do that again. But the Philadelphia offensive line has a massive, massive advantage over a Rams defense that has not been very good against the run. And this is going to be a dominant offensive line effort. They're going to try to sell out to stop Barkley. They're going to obviously have to do that. And they're going to see if Jalen Hurts can beat them. But the corners, and I get it, Ahkello Witherspoon, who got hurt in that game. Yeah, he's been playing okay. He's Ahkello Witherspoon. And none of those corners are at the level of Devontae Smith if A.J. Brown's 70% healthy or Goddard. So I think even if they oversell out to stop the run, Jalen Hurts could take the ball and run. It's going to be really hard. And the other thing is the weather in this game. We are looking at another game where the wind chill is going to be extremely low. We're looking at, I think, 11 degrees, if I remember correctly. It's going to be very, very cold out there. So that's going to be problematic for the Rams as well. Oh, it's going to, let's see, 12, I think 11-degree wind chill, yes.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty windy too.
Yeah.
And it kind of swirls there, not like Giant Stadium, but it'll be tough for the kickers kicking that rock. What do you think, Bo? You on board with the Eagles maybe falling behind early and then just dominating with that offensive line? I think that's a pretty good formula.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Rams score first, but I mean, the one thing we're not talking about here is that the Eagles have the number 1 overall defense. They're first in yardage. They're second in passing yards. They're second in points allowed. The only thing you can kind of do, which they're 10th at, is run. And you know what the Rams can't do is run. So this is a game that realistically the Eagles should have pretty well in the bag. Is a big emotional win for the Rams as well. So there might be a little bit of a letdown there, as on top of it. I like the Eagles here to definitely cover that 6 points. For one game, the Rams was a good story. For this weekend, they're going back to LA.
Quick question for you. Number 1 defense, but against the 30th ranked opponents. Does that sway you any way from them being actually the best defense?
I mean, at the end of the day, you got to play who's on your schedule, right? I mean,
good point.
So, and they're all NFL teams. I mean, you're looking, if you were to take the worst team in the league, that's still 53 All-Americans. Let's be honest, right? Like it's not like guys out there are scrubs. So I agree. Like it hasn't been the best test, but you still have to stop the teams that you're playing.
Good
in
point.
that first meeting, the Rams moved the ball right down the field and Kyren Williams fumbled it away. On the next drive, they moved it right down the field and they scored. So they did have the ability to do some good things on offense. But the thing that we notice is this. Once Philly had a lead and Matthew Stafford had to pass, he was done. 5 sacks, under pressure more than that, couldn't get the ball out. There wasn't room for his receivers. And here's the thing. Vic Fangio's kind of had a history against Sean McVay. And we remember that from that Super Bowl back when the tape so Fangio coached with the Bears. He set the game plan that Bill Belichick stole for that Super Bowl and shut down the Rams. Well, now we have a case where Fangio's seen this version of what McVay wants to do with Nacua and a lesser degree Kupp. And now Vic Fangio is going to have some curveballs. And I think Fangio is going to have way better success than McVay in this one. I think he just knows how to coach against this guy.
Yeah, I have to agree with that too. It's a chess match, but it's overwhelming favorite to the Eagles, I think. Let's move on to the other one, which is very intriguing. This is the Ravens going up to Buffalo, and the weather is going to be bad there. But in my opinion, it actually favors the Ravens to have horrendous weather because what do? They run the ball and they don't turn it over. And I think there's a huge advantage. With the worse the weather gets, the more I like the Ravens. The market has moved accordingly. The Ravens were a 1-point underdog at the start. They are now 1.5 at most places. Right now, I'm looking at them at 1.5 favored and a total of 51.5. I kind of like the Ravens here. I always remember the Bills, sadly, because of their 4 consecutive Super Bowl losses, and I want them to win one so badly. But this is going to be a really tough matchup, and I think the market's saying that Baltimore is a slightly better team in this matchup and playing on the road yet. I think the market's telling us that they are the better team. This betting system has gone 73%, guys, since 2010, 30, and 11. Very simply, bet against home dogs. That dog is coming off a win by 21 or more points, and this is for the playoff rounds. So a very strong betting algorithm here that is on the Ravens. Let's start with Rudy. Do you think the Ravens who beat your Steelers are going to get it done?
I'm going to have to say yes. And there's a lot of reasons why they can get it done. First of all, they have Lamar Jackson. Now, I take nothing away from Josh Allen, who resides, or at least his family resides about 45 minutes to an hour away from I'm currently located. But the Bills are trying to get past the Ravens since 2020. So whether the view is in, maybe everything in the rearview mirror is behind you, I think everything in front of the Baltimore Ravens is probably good for them. Despite the very dominant performance by the Bills beating the Broncos in a whopping 31-7, a very convincing victory for Josh Allen and the Bills. And then on the other side of that spectrum, the Ravens, clearly took care of the Steelers 28-14. But don't forget, they're the second back-to-back winners of the AFC North and 6-3 on the road. And whether they're playing in wind chill factor, don't forget it gets very cold in Baltimore, Maryland. It's going to be even colder. But I think this favors the run game, John, in a very, very big way. But I take nothing away from what Josh Allen has done for the Bills. It's just something in me that says the Bills will end up failing in this matchup against Derrick Henry, failing against Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP. Despite the Bills playing at home, it does favor them a little bit as far as an edge. But if there was a money line to this, Baltimore, there's a slim margin. Baltimore's a favorite in Buffalo, which is extremely unheard of. And now you have a team in the Ravens that are coming in who are basically, I think they're just going to walk away with it. I mean, Lamar Jackson completed 16 of 21, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns against Pittsburgh, and then accounted for week 4 in the Bills, completing 13 of 18. Josh Allen did it with 156 yards and 2 touchdowns while rushing 6 times for almost 55 yards. This is a battle for who's MVP. Whoever wins this game will be the NFL MVP. I really believe that. I take nothing away from Saquon Barkley. He's had a fabulous season, but I think, again, one of those guys where he's going to be handcuffed because of 2 quarterbacks and their position, because they are quarterbacks are going to run through this MVP conversation. I haven't heard Saquon Barkley's name, but if I was a betting man, I would take the Ravens to cover. I think not only do the Ravens cover, but I think Buffalo covers as well. And there's a lot of reasons why I think they're going to cover. Don't have enough time in this show for that conversation, but it's going to be tough. I'm picking the Ravens here, unfortunately, only because I know what they did to my team, but I also know what they've done on the road. And I know what they've done to other teams. And despite the defense trying to figure it out in the second half of the season, just like the Rams, they figured out what they need to do, and they did it quite often against Pittsburgh. So it was not going to surprise me to see Baltimore get it done on the road as a favorite in Buffalo against Josh Allen and the Bills.
I can't agree more. And I think I mentioned the weather favoring the run game. Lamar Jackson has one of the highest spin rates of his football throws. We always remember I remember watching Brady, and you couldn't tell which way the wind was blowing because he had such a tight spin rate that the wind really hardly ever altered it. So I think that's another advantage. Jim, do you think Baltimore is just going to run away with this, like Rudy said?
So when we look at this game, Buffalo Bills defense, Sean McDermott's built this defense to stop the pass. They were built to beat the Chiefs, stop the explosive plays. They are a light front. They play nickel defense as their base, which means they've always been willing to give up the run. In the first meeting, when they played Baltimore week 4, Derrick Henry goes for 199 yards. Now I know that 90 of those came on one run on the first play of the game. I get that. But that said, in this game, wind chill, 0 to 2 degrees. 51% chance of rain. We saw last week and down the stretch, Lamar Jackson, really the last 4 games, is becoming more of a factor in the run game than he was in the middle of the season. And Patrick Ricard is your X factor. Patrick Ricard, who normally plays up to 47% of the snaps, I think we see him on the field 75% of the snaps. They're going to put that 300-pound battering him against a small defensive front that can't stop the run. And if they target Henry, Jackson's pulling the ball and going. They're not going to throw much. They might throw 15 passes in this game. But when they do, Mark Andrews will be fine. I don't know if Zay Flowers is playing. But I think I've been saying for 2 months, if we see Derrick Henry in January in winter weather, look out for any team he's playing.
I can't agree more. Bo, are you on board with Baltimore getting the win here?
Absolutely, because what's the one thing we saw them do last week that they didn't do a year ago in the playoffs? They ran the ball. Weirdly, the team that's number 1 in rushing decided to run the ball this year, and who knew? They won. It's crazy. So, yeah, I think they use Henry frequently, right? The other thing is, this is where I feel like the Bills were set up a little bit for failure this year in the playoffs because Josh Allen is back to being 90% of their offense, right? Whether he's throwing it or running it in himself. He had a game where he threw 3 touchdowns and ran 3 touchdowns. That's not sustainable when you get into the playoffs and meet actual defenses. So the odds of you winning 4 of those games by your quarterback being the sole guy that scores on your team, it's unlikely.
Well, Cook carried the ball 200
times. Not saying it can't happen, but we're talking about betting. That's a long shot. What's that?
I said James Cook, he carried the ball for 207 times at almost 1,009 yards.
No, I'm not saying there's not other guys on the team. Obviously, there are.
Well, no, of course, it's a one-man band. You're not carrying the cymbal, trumpet, and guitar, playing it all at the same time.
He's still the primary guy of that offense. Whereas you look at teams like Baltimore and KC, like there's other elements to it where Josh Allen routinely has to play hero ball. That's my issue. So I like Baltimore here, obviously to cover because 1 point you have to. Right. There's no ties in the playoffs. So, you're going to cover 1 point.
Right.
So, yeah, I like Baltimore to win here on the road. The fact that it's going to be terrible weather does help. And, his throwing ability is something that is largely underrated. He was one of the best QBRs in the league. Yep. Everybody, for some reason, remembers when he came into the league, he didn't throw the ball very well. And everybody still seems to like the narrative of, oh, he's a running back that plays quarterback. It's like, no, he can throw the ball pretty well, actually.
He's more than just a one-dimensional guy that I think a lot of these analysts fail to realize in that. Whereas Josh Allen, who played for the Wyoming Cowboys, I had the pleasure of covering that team, but a year after he was removed because he was, drafted by the Buffalo Bills. He is a take it as you go guy, meaning that he has the ball, he's going to take it and go. If there's no one open, no one available, he's going to take it and go. That's just what he does. That's his personality. It's hard to see the Bills win this game with that type of mentality, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to be creative offensively I mean, look, situational football has not been the strength for Josh Allen. And I don't say that as a discredit, but because of the system that he's in, that means that he's going to have to do a lot more often. And unfortunately, I don't think that they're going to be able to do it offensively and schematically, take Baltimore out of their normal defensive progressions. And you got to have a QB spy on both quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and the Buffalo Bills quarterback and Josh Allen. So if you don't have a QB spy and you don't follow this guy, they're going to slice and dice you. You're going to wish you had.
And Rudy, the spy is a double-edged sword, because if you have to spy, it's one less person on Derrick Henry.
Right. That's true. That's absolutely accurate. But then that's why you have that safety blitz, because if the safety blitz comes up and gets to that line, you're like the sneaker bug. You're the one who could wrap up Derrick Henry and only, commit to maybe a 4 or 5 yard, gain on that actual grab, and not even a tackle for loss. But now you're putting them somewhat behind the sticks because they haven't completed the 10. They've only completed part of that 10.
And that's why Patrick Ricard probably plays more snaps, because when that guy comes, the 300-pound Patrick Ricard is going to blow up the 230-pound safety on the blitz. Oh, yeah. Love it.
And that's when you have that offset line. And the offset line on the offense is absolutely existential. They did it against Pittsburgh, and they're going to do it again against this very viable front of the Buffalo Bills, who's been relatively decent. They've dealt with their own set of injuries. Don't get me wrong, but Baltimore has just figured something out, and I foresee a Ravens, Kansas City Chiefs AFC Championship game where I believe that the Baltimore Ravens will end up taking out Kansas City. Ooh. I just do. That's going to be the best AFC matchup probably within the last 5 to 7 years, at least.
Yep. Well, let's get to the last game here. I know Bo has his big show coming up here in about 7 minutes. So I think we'll start this game with him, and then he can just give us our best bet, and then he can leave whenever he needs to leave. But that's a show that you definitely want to tune into as soon as we are done, of course, and take that all in. You can't get enough information to be a good bettor. And remember, it's about having fun. It's not about, making 10 grand in a weekend, because if you try to do that, it's probably not going to work so well. Okay, you're going to end up with the New York Jets or the Giants. But anyway, I do have one little system here. That's the Texans Chief. Maybe I didn't put that one on. Oh, shoot. I don't think I actually added that one. Nevertheless, this game is the last one on the card, and that is the Washington Commanders against the Detroit Lions. I have many analytics that support the Washington Commanders. Bo, do you think there's any shot whatsoever that the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels can pull off the miracle?
Is there a chance? Sure. They're on house money, and the Lions have 13 players on IR on the defensive side of the ball. So, anything's possible. I still like Detroit here. That offense can move the ball on anybody. I would expect Washington to keep pace early and then fall off because that defense, for whatever reason, the popcorn guy with the jersey on seems to still be playing decent defense for this Lions team. So I'm going to go with the Lions do win. I like Washington to cover. That actually is my best bet, is Washington to cover this 9.5 spread. If you were going to do a different prop, I would take the over in this game, because there's going to be some points scored. So those are the two ways that I like this game. Fitting that we finished on it, because that's where my best bet was.
Excellent. Well, you can take off anytime you want. You can stay as long as you want, but I know you have your big show coming up here in a few minutes.
Yeah.
And Jim, it looks like you have to go too.
I have a top of the hour. I'm hosting top of the hour as well. So do you want me to chime in on this one quick? Or going?
Let's get your best bet in now.
Yeah, the best bet is the Ravens. It's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson as a duo is greater than Josh Allen, and that's where the game's going to lie. Washington game, Detroit is a team that has a mission. They play like they're on a mission. They're playing an inexperienced team that does not have a good defense. They're going to run the ball behind that great right side of the line, grind the clock down, and ultimately it's going to shorten the possessions for the Commanders. They make any mistakes, they're in trouble. We know the blitz is coming. It's going to be a bit of a problem. So I do think that we're going to see the Lions take care of business by double digits.
If one of you guys like the Rams here, you'll be happy to know that Higbee is listed to play. So if you were leaning Rams anyway, they do get their tight end back. Anyway, I got to jam out of here. Take it easy.
Right.
Thanks, Bo. Appreciate it.
See ya. Rudy, what do you think of this game? Do they have a chance to pull it off?
This is going to be tough. This is going to be really tough because Jay Daniels, I mean, this is a fairy tale type of season for the Commanders. And I take nothing away from what Dan Campbell has done on the other side of the ball. But I look at this as a very offensively driven game between the Lions and the Jay Daniels, who's just been absolutely fabulous for my hometown of San Bernardino, California. This is going to be tighter than it actually looks. And on paper, it looks close. But the Commanders, oh man, that's tough against this Dan Campbell-led defense. Offensively, yeah, they have 15 guys, that are out or so. But, at the end of the day, I like the Lions in this game. It's going to be a fairy tale ending for Jane Daniels, despite his QBR rating, which looks extremely good this season. And then the hard-nosed win against Baker Mayfield was just absolutely phenomenal. So, again, it's going to be a shootout. I don't see this game even remotely close, but it will be in the double digits. Commanders will cover, as Bo had stated prior to his departure, and I think that the Lions cover as well. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the Lions move on here in this matchup and take on the Philadelphia Eagles, where I believe that if the Lions can get some of those guys back from injury and they go up against the Philadelphia Eagles, I think the Lions not only have a chance, but they could actually end up winning it and going into an NFC championship game.
Yeah, I think the Lions are probably a Super Bowl bound team, and a team that's never been to the Super Bowl. I believe they certainly never won one, and that would be pretty cool for that fan base as well. I do think the Washington Commanders are going to give them a battle, and it may only be for 2 quarters, but I don't see this going 28-0 in the first quarter in favor of Detroit. I do have a little betting algorithm here that supports the Commanders. This has gone 65% since 2015. Bet on road underdogs, priced between 3.5 and 10 points. The dog has committed no more than 1 turnover in each of their last 2 games. And turnovers are huge in the playoffs. There's no doubt about it. The opponent is coming off a game forcing 0 turnovers. If the game takes place in the playoffs, these teams have gone 8-2 against the spread. Good for 80% winning bets, and that supports the Commanders. Now, with the best bet, Rudy, what is your best bet for the show?
My best bet has got to be Bills and Ravens. I mean, I just think that my best bet is watching Lamar Jackson drafted in the same draft class as Sam Darnold and a lot of aforementioned guys. But I think he'll rush for probably 50 yards. And get at least 3 to 4 touchdowns. This will also be a shootout against the Buffalo, but I think that the Ravens go on to find a way to beat Kansas City. That is my best bet.
Yeah, I think so too. And so far we have Washington from Bo, we have Ravens from you and Jim, and for me it's a very tough call, but it's a tough one with the Rams. I think what I'm going to do is kind of do 50% pre-flop on the Rams, and then there
you go.
Hope that they score first, and then I'm going to try to play the middle, try to get a middle of at least 10 points between the Rams and the Eagles with that live in-game betting.
Sure. Yeah.
So with that said, I will be posting on the X during that game for the whole game with the live in betting. Apparently, a lot of people like what I do with the live in game. I do because I keep seeing the pizza truck show up at my house and I don't have to pay them. But anyway, that'll wrap it up for today, Rudy. Really appreciate you being on the show. And we'll be back here next Thursday when we have the Final Four. 2 games, conference championship. I cannot wait. Personally, I think it's going to be Detroit and Philly. And I do think it's going to be the Ravens and the Texans.
Oh.
That's my Final Four prediction.
It's going to be good.
I mean, if that combination, you could get a pretty good odds at your sports book. And again, you put $10 on it,
right?
And that one might be around 30-1, 35-1, and that's a lot of pizzas and a lot of pepperoni.
You better invite a lot of people over too to eat it.
Oh, I absolutely would. I might have enough money to pay for the air flight for the people to come visit. but anyway. appreciate you guys all watching. Numbers were great today. And Rudy, good luck with your bets this weekend. You and I will be in touch.
Yeah.
And
Sounds
until
good.
next Thursday, always remember, bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins be yours.